Hello and welcome. We have another BizTalk session today. We've got a special guest all the way from the UK. We're chatting to Bayo Igoh, and we're going to be finding out a lot more about him and his coaching. Good day, Igoh. We were joking about that just now. Now it's got stuck in my head. I mean, really.
Okay, we knew that was going to happen, so we let you off. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Yeah, good. Well, no complaints. So, Bayo, you and I have had a couple of chats, and let's chat a little bit about you and who you are and where you're from. So, where were you born? And also keep in mind, we got people all over the world who are watching, and potentially they might be from a country that's right as we speak busy finalizing their elections, and geography is not their strong point. So, let's sort of look general geographical areas.
So, born in the UK, Great Britain, as was known, in a city called London, as is known, in a little place, a village actually called Dulwich Village. I was born in Dulwich Hospital. Shall I give the dates, or should we just move on?
Well, if you're comfortable to share your age, yeah, go for it.
So, yeah, that puts into context. 1968, 27th of September, born in Dulwich Hospital. But then we moved, interestingly enough, to a place called Clapham. It's about 5 miles away. Lived in Clapham for about 4 years. And then my dad and my mum bought their first property in 1972, which was in a place called Brixton. Again, about a mile from Clapham, 5 miles from Dulwich. And that's where I've spent most of my formative life. I didn't leave Brixton, apart from college, holidays, and extended travel, until about 10 years ago, and finally landed in the beautiful borough of Lewisham, in a beautiful hamlet called Forest Hill. So I'm a Londoner, South Londoner, born and bred. My immediate allegiances have been to the London Borough of Lambeth and Brixton, where I grew up, but I'm now developing a soft spot for Lewisham, and I think that will come out in some of the things that I'm doing now, particularly for the London Borough of Lewisham. But what's most important, and as any Londoner will tell you, I'm a South Londoner, pure breed South Londoner, and that makes a lot of difference when you're living and born in London.
Yeah, I know. Of course, culturally, everybody's very proud in the UK of exactly where they come in the borough that they're in, and it's often very linked to football. I don't know. Should we go down that road? Right in the beginning.
Ask away. You're going to ask me the question about who I support.
which well, what soccer or football team, depending on where in the world you are, do you support?
It's football, and I support the Arsenal. And people who know about the Arsenal and the geography of London are going to ask, if you live in South London, how can you support a team in North London? Well, let's get the history right. Arsenal were first brought together in around 1880 something in the Royal Borough of Greenwich, in a place called Woolwich, the Woolwich Arsenal. And then we went up north, took over the Spurs' territory, and Arsenal. But there's another reason why I support Arsenal. I've been a supporter for over 40 years. Inbred, ingrained Arsenal supporter.
I said I am an Arsenal supporter, as much as a South African can be, but your history knowledge is far, far beyond what mine is.
Probably got the date wrong, so we might edit it that.
We'll skip past that. Post-production problems. Okay, so that's where you grew up and where you're from. School-wise, where did you go? What was school like for you in the south of London?
Yeah, again, interesting story. So I went to a Catholic school. My parents became Catholics why they came to England in 66. And I went to a school called Salesian College, which is the Order of St. Don Bosco. And St. Don Bosco, if anyone knows, is the patron saint of young boys, helping young boys out of poverty. And Salesians, at the time I was in school, had 4 schools around Great Britain. So London, Battersea, Poole, which is near Liverpool, Bolton, which is near Liverpool, and Farnborough, which is south, and schools dotted all over Europe. But for me, it was a travel from Brixton to Battersea, a couple of buses, and a few bits of walking, and what a great school that was. In fact, I say it's a great school. If you were to look at my contact on my phone, for every 100 people on that phone, at least 5 are ex-school friends of mine. So some I do business with, some I play with, some I go to watch football with, some I'm godparents of, they're godparents of.
Sure.
That was a really tight-knit school. So birthdays, Christmas and weddings, that fills my calendar. Well, it did before the current pandemic. But yeah,
Well, when you
I love my school. Great school.
Oh, fantastic. It always says a lot when you've got friends still from your school days. I've got the same as well. And those are some of the biggest bonds you'll form in your life. And I'm sure it's formed a large formative part of yourself as well, and getting to know yourself and grow as a person, because they spend most of your life with you and see how your journey goes and how you transition through life.
Definitely is the case. And some are positive transitions, obviously, some are not. Some are still with us, some are not, both physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. But it is about making those connections at a young age, not knowing that in years to come, those connections can be different in terms of how you engage, what you talk about. And it's quite a funny story when you think about some of the people I met at school have become great people, or greater than I could ever have aspired. And some that you aspire to be great people are just all right, Jack. But what's most important, they're all right, Jack. And that will come again out in why I've chosen my current career.
Okay, great. So you finished school, great experience. Studies wise, what did you study? You did send me the list. It's quite an extensive and very impressive list, to be honest.
We did well at school. We went to Salesian, which was a great school at the time, had a sixth form college, which was part of its attraction. But then Sir Keith Joseph and Margaret Thatcher decided to close a certain number of sixth forms. So I went away with about 9 O-levels, called GCSEs or whatever they're called today. A few A's, a few B's sprinkled. But my old man wanted me to be a doctor. He wanted me to study chemistry, maths and biology. Chemistry, maths, biology and physics. And unfortunately, I got 3 U's and a B. I won't tell you which subjects I got them in. But I persuaded him that I've got the gift of the gab, pretty good at retaining information, and I love adversary, positive adversary. So could I be a lawyer? Fast forward, did the law and economics, went to law school, didn't practice law, unfortunately, didn't get articles, did some time at the London School of Economics, did a corporate commercial law master's, still didn't get to practice. And so I then flipped and went into housing very accidentally. But while I was there, being a Nigerian, that's my heritage, we have to study and get the names and letters after our names. So I did a housing course or 2 or 3, ended up with a master's in housing. And then I did another pivot. And you can ask me questions about what type of work I've done. And now I'm a coach. So I've got accreditations in coach and qualifications in coaching. So my qualifications are around law, housing, coaching and mentoring. And the common denominator is helping people.
Yes, yeah. Actually, for a bit of context, obviously in the UK and in London, housing's a lot different to what here in South Africa it means, or potentially anywhere else in the world. And it is interesting because I think it was for a large part of your life. So just explain a little bit around housing and how that works.
So social housing, for want of a better word, when I started, probably 1992, 93, and the same ethos is Beveridge in 1944 after the Second World War, there was a mixed match of properties, housing for people. And there was a big surge by the government then to build a number of houses, municipal housing, public housing for people to live in. Unfortunately, today, it's seen as a housing of last resort for a number of reasons, political, socio-economical. Housing hasn't moved as fast as private housing. But the work I did was working in the housing sector across various degrees of housing management. So looked after properties, built properties, managed the tenants in the properties, income management, community engagement, antisocial behavior, etc., etc. That's the work I did basically between 1993 and about 2016, working for a number of housing associations, local authorities, and my last stint was with the City of London Corporation.
Okay, right. So it's not just providing access to housing, but it's also addressing socioeconomic issues in the area at the same time as well.
Yeah, with progressive governments and progressive changes in what the government of the day saw as to be appropriate, you then looked at 1979, changes in housing, which meant individuals were able to buy their houses. So you had leasehold management, And with leasehold management, you then had to work out service charge arrangements, financial, fiduciary, etc., etc. And then with changes in community, antisocial behavior became a very big thing. Community development, community engagement, partnership working with social services, the police, etc., etc. So all these things became part of housing plus. It wasn't just enough to put a roof over your head and then collect the rent. You needed to collect the rent, put the roof over the head, create a social environment which was manageable, livable, sustainable. And today we're talking about environmental issues as well. Wow.
That's quite
remember all that. It's been a few years, to be fair.
Yeah, well done. But that's quite a diverse, dynamic, and very complex situation. And I'm sure it's led to a lot of interesting situations. So in prep, I did ask, as always, just a little bit of a fun one to find out more about people is the worst job that you've ever had. And it seems like you haven't had too many bad experiences.
Well, I think what I wrote was, I didn't think I had a bad job. I mean, when I was younger, I worked as a brickie, I worked as a labourer, I worked for Marks and Spencer's for many years at High Street Kensington in the fridges, doing great stuff. I've worked for a number of housing associations, local authorities. I've worked for a private company. I've worked for my mum. I've worked for my dad. So it's not the jobs per se, but it could have been an incident. So, you know, when I was working as a roofer, you expected a client on top of the roof. That's when I realised I suffered from vertigo. But I didn't tell anyone for about 30 years. I kept on climbing these roofs, putting stuff up. But, you know, I was bricking it, to say the least. There's going to be some jobs that I've had, and I'll be honest, I'll say it. I've signed 3 or 4 confidentiality agreements in my time. And anyone who knows what a confidentiality agreement is a confidentiality agreement. So there's been some stuff I've had to deal with on a personal level. And there's been some incidences. So unfortunately, we have Grenfell Tower, which happened very recently. But in my 20 odd years of housing, although I haven't been part of any fatalities, I've had and managed incidences where properties have blown up or issues, circumstances have happened. I lived through 3 riots as a youngster, working in various shops within and around Brixton. So yeah, it's not the job. It's an incident that might have happened on a particular day, at a particular time, which on reflection, you say, man, that wasn't good. But hey, you grow and you learn from it.
Well, that's the thing I was going to say is that, you know, we have these experiences on our journeys in life, and they're not always very pleasant or something that you would ever want to happen to another person or have to be involved with. But at the end of the day, it helps you grow as a person as well. And I suppose you sometimes have got to take the good with the bad, eh?
Definitely. I mean, and there's been some isms, you know, you've been persecuted for this or wrongly accused of that. And you've made mistakes yourself in terms of trying to deliver a service which hasn't actually met the requirements of your customer base, namely some tenants. Some of the hardest bits of work was holding tenant meetings of an evening, and the tenants were dissatisfied, frustrated, overwhelmed, didn't understand or didn't appreciate, or more importantly, just was fed up with the same old churn of excuses in terms of their livelihood, which has had a lot of battering because of changes in economics, politics, and governments. But hey, it was hardcore learning, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure it made a lot of difference in a lot of people's lives. And you touched on there briefly some things people may not know about you. Vertigo, one of them, shows a little bit of determination, and I can't say that, but let's say a very brave soul to work on a roof with vertigo.
And a few others. When I finally admitted it, I mean, I used to go skiing a lot, and so going up those slopes and coming down was treble hard work for me. Lifts, bridges, I find it very difficult to walk across a bridge.
Sure.
I find it difficult to drive across bridges because I can just see that. But the time I admitted it was when, with my missus, and one of our first or second or third holidays, we went to America and we went to cycling, and we cycled across the Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco.
Wow.
It was then I realized I just couldn't do this. I just couldn't do it. I mean, I was 30 plus at the time, and I just got to get off my bike and walk it to the other end. It's a longer walk is the San Francisco Bridge. And my partner's on the other side, and she said, what took you so long? I had a punctured tire. She said, okay, no punctured tire. She saw it, but she said nothing. Then we went off to the Yosemite Mountains, did a bit of hiking, and that was it. I was walking on on the cliff faces with my back. And then some of the guides came up to us and said, is he all right? Because he doesn't look all right. And then I said, look, I hate heights. I think I suffer from vertigo. And then that was it. I mean, it then became a conscious thing, which people didn't have to take on board, but I'd kept it to myself. And by keeping it to myself, I went through those fear barriers again and again and again and again. And it was painful, but it was something that I had to do because of pride, ego, and actually getting something done. But now I manage it in a completely different way, understanding what your limiting beliefs are, understanding what your goal setting is, and then working out a plan to execute it. I was doing it without knowing that stuff. I was just doing it because I had an ego or I had to deliver something. Now it's done by managing the negativity that I might face carrying out a particular activity.
And I suppose that's also a very good life lesson as well, is learning where that line is, where you've got to face your fears and face the challenges that are in front of you, but also get to the point where it's actually healthy to admit it and learn to manage it at the same time.
Definitely. Another big topic, we might talk about it later, is procrastination. Now, everyone procrastinates, some more so than others. The issue is, do you know that you're procrastinating? And do you have tools to address that procrastination? Now, people who say, I don't procrastinate, I go bang, 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 fair play to you. But there's something that is making you go bang, 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 and that is a fear of procrastinating. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. So with me and vertigo, it is what it is. There are some lifts I won't touch with a barge pole. So going to Dubai is hard work for me. Going to some places in East Asia is hard work because most of their lifts are glassed.
Yes.
So you can actually see where you're traveling in. But hey ho, there are steps to take that there's things I do when I know that one of those challenges is going to be harder than what I would like it to be.
Definitely. And we can learn a lot more how that you apply with your coaching at the same time. Before we get there, let's do some good news. Everybody needs some good news. So on your side, what is good news in Bayo's world?
At the moment in time, wow, it's a blue sky out there. It's been raining a lot recently. So it's a blue sky out there. You know what? We've gone through some difficult times this last 6 months, the whole world. I'm just pleased that me, my missus, and my children, 3 boys that I have, we're in a kind of a good place, solid place. So that's my good news. Across the world, you know, as you said earlier, there's a big vote going on over there. What seems to be happening is a lot more people are taking the democratic right to vote. So one just hopes that those votes are going to be counted, and that is both figuratively and literally to be counted. But what's good news? What's really good news? I think, yeah, I'm in a good place. I'm in a completely different place than I was 4 years ago. May not be as rich as I was 4 years ago, but mentally, physically, and emotionally, I'm in a lot better place than I was 4 years ago. So that's good news. Good friends, good family, good life.
Yeah, what more do you need? I've got some really nice stories I actually want to share with you. I like to research these because there's some really good stuff happening, and with all the negativity in the world at the moment, these stories are overlooked. So this one's very cool, and there's a new documentary on Netflix called Kiss the Earth, which is with celebrities and things, and they talk about the importance of biodiversity with microorganisms in the soil and soil health. Okay, and this taps beautifully into that in terms of environmental improvements and working with that. So it's been described as the most disruptive startup from 2016 by Google. It's called BigOh. You have any idea? You can just swing a guess at what you think this BigOh does.
BigOh.
BigOh. It's a new form of renewable energy. And they've worked out a way using the soil microbes to generate electricity in a simple and ingenious way. So it works off when it's in the ground and the battery is agitated or receives rain, nutrients, and microbes in the soil that feed on decaying plant matter. They leach into the battery where their feeding activity creates protons and electrons. Then it's combined with oxygen flowing in through the holes in this battery that's under the ground. And this process currently generates enough electricity to power lights, screens, and small appliances. Now they're working on it to try and get it to the point where it would actually power an entire house. And it's really unbelievable. It's to manufacture these batteries doesn't require any toxic or rare earth minerals like some of your solar panels do. And the best thing is it does it all the time. The soil is always doing its thing. Those microbes never go to sleep. So you don't have to worry about when the sun's up or if the wind's blowing for your wind turbines or anything like that. It's a process that can continue working. So it's a very, very interesting process that they are developing and growing. And with any new technology, obviously it takes a lot of research and development and testing. They're using mostly pots at the moment to test it out. But the other good news is that it's going to be affordable as well. So the process to make these units makes use of some of the most common minerals in the atmosphere and in the world. And it's a fantastic process. So I think that's something to look forward to. And best news all is it generates extra H2O, water that goes back into the soil from the process. So that's exciting news, and it's something I'll definitely keep an eye on over the next few years to see how they develop it and roll it out. And imagine new cities and new houses being built with this underneath it that powers that building or that house or whatever the case may be.
Who are the leading proponents of it at the moment?
The name of the company?
Yeah.
The company is called BigOh. So it's spelled BIOO.
Okay. That's a good feed.
Yeah.
You should share that, Chris.
Yeah, no. Well, that's what we're doing, yeah.
You're sharing it. Yeah, you are. That's a good shout. I'll look into that because I say that I'm a trustee of a charity based in Rwanda. And some of the difficulties we're having there is getting, the difficulties of water irrigation, planting, food production, and vegetable production. It'll be interesting to see. Probably that's in its early stages, BO, but that's the type of innovation that the charities I'm working with, the communities I'm working with, would give their right arm for. And so, as you say, it's been affordable. As you're saying, it's quite easy to do. Then I'll be really interested to see who and where that bio company is working with to scale it up and get it out there. Many, many nations across the world would benefit from that.
And that's the beauty of having conversations like this and connecting like this, because here we've discovered something else that's completely unique. We're having a chat about you and how we can actually make a difference somewhere else. And I think you and I need to have a follow-up meeting. Whoopsie, there goes my headphone. I'm so excited. We should have a follow-up meeting about those projects because that's another little one of my personal touch points. So let's do that. But on to the next one is sleep. Now, you're a dad, so you know this one. A sleep-deprived person does not function particularly well. And there's been so much research done into sleep and things like don't consume a blue screen just before you go to sleep and all the various different ones. Here's another one that they've just recently done. So it's USF, which was in the USA. What they did is they followed 61 nurses for 2 weeks to track how they are coping under the pandemic and the extreme circumstances that they have to work. And what they found, which was very interesting, is they measured various different things about characteristics of sleep health. So they looked at, sleep sufficiency and sleep quality and sleep duration and all of those things. And in a very big nutshell from a big study, what they found is the nursing staff who slept for an extra 29 minutes were more mindful the next day. So mindfulness is obviously, it's a purposeful process of bringing awareness as an individual and attention to experiences occurring right now to form an opinion or make a decision or whatever. So it's interesting, they also found that the people who got better sleep, but that extra 29 minutes, suffered from less insomnia, and then were more effective on the job. So less mistakes, et cetera, not only because they weren't sleep deprived, but they actually were more self-aware of what they were doing. And that's a different approach to sleep that I've never seen before, is doing that. And I think that's a good point for us to go into what BigOh Coaching is and what it is that you do, how it came about. So let's start right at the beginning of how did we get from housing and everything to going into coaching and starting BigOh, and when did that happen?
So the bottom line is, I had aspired to be a pretty senior housing bod, and I was always on the cusp of directorship or an executive directorship or leading my own ship. And on this last occasion, the rug got pulled under me. And so I think the bottom line is, when you have a real crazy thing happening in your life where everything seems to be falling apart, you're on the cusp of either giving up or saying, I can't take it no more. You then make a big decision. And I just said, you know what? I've been doing this housing lark for a long time. Am I getting job satisfaction? Not really. Am I doing what I want to do? Yes, I am. But I made a mistake, which one then was just led to me thinking, you know what, this is not for me. What else can I do? So to be honest, truth is 2003, I think, was the first time I had been engaged with a coach. The then chief executive of the organization said, you're great managers, guys, but we need you to be great leaders. And for that to happen, we're going to bring coaches on board. Now you're talking about London-centric guys, managers, old school. What's a coach? We're going to play football. We're going to be playing tennis, blah, blah, blah. But cut to the chase, that experience for 6 months with a coach was a turning point in my life. And I kept on using coaches. Then I kept on looking into studying about coaching, started to read about coaching. Not something that I brought to my personal life, really, but I did bring it to the workspace. As I grew and climbed up that slippery slope, I started to use coaching techniques in my management and engagement of teams, large or small. But anyway, come 2016, I did something, I was accused of something even bigger, asked to leave, left, then said to myself, what else can I do? Mentoring, I was a mentor for 20 years anyway, during the various roles that I took on board, but I brought them together and developed my own coaching and mentoring practice. And that was interesting because that's all well and good. I'm a great coach, I'm a great mentor, but am I actually a businessman? How am I going to turn this into something that makes money, that will sustain my life, pay my bills, pay my mortgages, take me on holiday, clothe and feed my 4 children? That's a completely different ballgame. But I combined the two over the last 4 years, and I'm doing relatively well. As I've said earlier, good friends, good life, good family. That's the starting point. Then I look at what is my measure of success. And my measure of success is great clients, satisfied clients, clients who are moving forward. And I am still doing what I'm doing to the best of my ability. The next third goal is, how do I scale that up without losing the client effective relationship that I am building? And that for me is to be doing what I do by myself. And at some point, bring on like-minded individuals who want to hold the baton and move it forward. So I have developed this coaching and mentoring practice, coaching small businesses and individuals who want to move from A to B. They've had their difficulties, they lack clarity, a number of coaching skills and techniques that I employ to help drive that. Mentoring, primarily my previous background in housing, I mentor aspiring young, super duper managers, directors of the future. But my passion for mentoring is young people, particularly people who come from disadvantaged, dysfunctional, disillusioned backgrounds, whatever that means, all unquote unquote. But people who have the eye of the tiger, people who know where they want to go or aren't sure of where they want to go, but need that guidance, that mentor to step in. And for that work, I do that primarily 20% of my business is around corporate social responsibility. So I do voluntary work for an organization called Black Training Engagement Group. They work with 18 to 24-year-olds who are on the cusp, are within, or have left the judicial system. So they may be in court, maybe going to prison, or in prison, or coming out of prison. And I work with those 18 to 24-year-olds on a mentoring basis. I work with communities in my former borough of Lambeth and my current borough of Lewisham in terms of schools, community ventures, and other charities that work with disadvantaged, disillusioned, or disengaged people. So that's what keeps me ticking over. And I enjoy it because of the variety, and I enjoy it because of the continuity about helping people, and equally about how I grow, because having set up my own business, having set up this coaching and mentoring practice, boy, have I learned a few stuff. Boy, have I learned marketing. Boy, have I learned about networking. Boy, have I learned about scaling up. Boy, have I learned all those things that you do as a business owner, but I'm now doing it for others. And it's exciting. It's exciting that as a result of networking, I've met you.
Yeah.
As a result of meeting you, I'm on this interview platform. As a result of this interview platform, God knows what's going to happen. But what's important, common denominator, is helping people. And that's what I try to do as a coach. Help the person or the team to move forward. You're in A, you want to go to B, you have an idea, you have a plan, but you don't necessarily know how to execute it. You may be shrouded in doubt, fear of success, fear of failure, procrastination, overwhelm, all those great buzzwords. But someone like me, who's a bit of a street kid at the same time, will adopt the skills that I've learnt, the knowledge that I've built to help you get from A to B as a coach. And I need to talk about my coaching as well, because I consider myself to be a pure coach. And there is a spectrum, non-directive intervention and directive intervention. Can you see my hands?
Yes, yeah.
What I mean by that is directive intervention is they will do it for you, they will show you how to do it, or they will help you deliver it. Whereas for me, non-directive intervention is supporting you, guiding you, analyzing, checking and challenging you, asking very deep, provoking questions, which are summarized into your action plan, which you will deliver. You'll be held accountable, you'll be held responsible, I will be your shadow, but I won't help you do it. I may advise, as part of my network, your network, the best people to help you do it, but my role is to energize you, motivate you, and help inspire you to do what you know is best for you and or your business moving forward.
Yeah, so that was sort of my question. Is at the moment there are a lot of coaches around, and there's a massive demand for it. I mean, it makes sense. There is a need for it, and there is a place for it. And I think, much like in various different industries, the right person is the right fit for you and things like that. But what I hear, and I'm just repeating so I make sure that I understand correctly, is that your approach and the way you do things is first of all, a very straightforward, take no, I can't say that, a very straight shooter kind of way of doing things, and no beating around the bush, but also leading a person and guiding them in the right direction. Instead of saying to them, here is my set out plan for coaching. So step one is you must do this, do that. Okay, come back to me with your homework. Step two, more what you do is you actually invest in your client or whoever it is that you're working with, find out really what makes them tick, what their challenges are, and the tools and things that they need to learn and grow in a natural, organic way, rather than just being a sort of, you have to do this and do kind of way.
So there's a number of skills that I've acquired over the time of coaching. So I'll talk to you about that, and I'll talk to you about how I onboard a client. So the skills are obviously accredited coaching, various schools of coaching techniques, that is, NLP, cognitive behavioral therapy, the fact that I've worked with people for over 40 years across the spectrum. But in terms of onboarding, there is an assessment, because to be coached well by a good coach, you need to want to be coached. That is the fundamental difference, because there is a need for you to take responsibility and be accountable for the actions you want to execute. So in that onboarding, it is a question of, yes, identifying that individual's goal. What do they want to do, how they want to do it, and when. My role is to support them in identifying the resources, the options, and the will to deliver. That's a simple grow methodology that most coaches will know. But what I then embrace upon is I get in there deeply and work with them about the tools that they have in terms of who they know, who they don't know, are they networking, how they're networking, what is it about them that is going to help them drive their business? Do they understand their P&L? Why do they have all of those things about helping them drive their business? And the reason that I onboard them in that way is because after they've gone through the assessment, they then will tell me the frequency and the length of time that engagement will be to deliver that goal. What I don't want to create is dependency. So I hear coaches saying, oh, you can work with me ad infinitum. What's the point? The goal has to be set and met. Once set and met, they then have another goal. That's growth. Just to continue on the same continuum, you're not growing, you're stalling, you're stalking, you're underselling yourself. You're not really excelling. So some of the things I talk about are I engage, I enable, I partly educate, but I most definitely empower you to excel. My 5 E's. I dropped that in a networking environment once and it didn't go down too well, talking about taking 5 E's, but that's another story.
Yeah, I can understand from the context of where that is as well. Yes, right.
Indeed. But in order to excel, you do need to enable yourself. You need to be educated. You need to be empowered. You really need to be engaged in the moment, because it's always about in the moment. And then when you go off to execute what you said you're going to do, and we might meet weekly, fortnightly, or monthly, then we have something to talk about in the next phase before completing the phase. And one goal can be actually a number of incremental steps to achieving that goal. And that can be broken down, not overnight, not prescribed. You can't just bowl in and say, right, there's the menu, get on with it. There are a number of menus. There are a number of processes. There are a number of systems. But I need to work out what's best for you by you telling yourself what's best for you in order to move forward. And in between that time, if I've got a good judge of your character, I will give you stuff. We will share stuff, but it's only stuff that you want to help you move from A to B to grow.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that ties into your personal experiences. We spoke earlier about having vertigo and taking a while to admit not only to yourself, but to people that's what's there. And I think potentially what you're saying is a good example of how that works is you as a coach, you can't assist somebody on a really big level if they're hiding even from themselves a challenge that actually is an ultimate block for them at the end of the day. And from what I'm hearing is you really, with their permission and their consent, obviously, because there's no point in taking the horse and making it drink the water. It ain't going to happen.
So that's an unbelievable foresight by you there, Chris. I'll give you a very quick coaching session. You question, you ask questions, you ask questions. But there comes a time where what I do is I seek permission to make a suggestion. So I say, Chris, in light of what we've said for the last hour, last few weeks, it seems to me that you are not doing X, Y, and Z. Might I suggest? And that is the only time I become directive. It has to be non-directive. And another anecdote, which is real, I made a post this morning because I've just finished working with an author. And he has just published his first book. And last weekend, it hit the Times, UK, the Times, was it the best book or most important book that week? It's a Halloween ghosty story book.
Okay.
But when he came to me with fear of failure, fear of success, procrastination, overwhelm, and ambition. Those were the 5 or 4 things we talked about. So I put the post out on there today with his permission, and someone came back and said, well done, author, the name I won't share right now, for accepting you needed help and going to a coach for that help. And that is the key to a successful coaching relationship. The client needs to want it to be done, and a good coach can help them get it done.
And it's about that consent. It's going to them and admitting. I think maybe that's always the first step they always say is the hardest step. And that's the hardest step, is actually getting to that point where you just say, I can't anymore. I need help. And embracing that help as well.
I think, you mentioned earlier, there's a number of coaches and there's a number of people needing help. I try to use the word support as opposed to help, because the individual kind of knows what they want. It's just that the environment in they're in, they might not be getting the correct support from their colleagues, from their peers, from their staff, from their partner, from the sector in which they're working for. They're not getting that support in that moment. But a good coach can come in and just catalyze or bring to bear aspects which make the other supporting mechanisms more available.
It makes me think of one of the best coaches that we've ever seen on cinema of all time. I'm not sure if you're a Star Wars fan, but Yoda did exactly that with Luke Skywalker. There was no, this is how you do this is how you do that. He asked the questions, and it was that journey. So it's very much sounds like that's the journey you do, is you ask the right question, and you are very much just that guide that helps, supports the person in the right direction, rather than you have to do this, you have to do that. And that will form a special bond and relationship as well. I'm sure you've got still very close relationships then with a lot of your previous clients and current clients.
Yeah, and I do, in the modern day, although you can coach, there's so much competition that you have to do other things. You have to have other strings to your bow in terms of coaching. I just came off a call with 3 colleagues. We're collaborating to put a piece of work together. And we were talking about marketing. And so one of the things that you need to do in terms of marketing, and you're the expert, is to make positive noise. It's to be seen, to be known, to be doing what you do. So some of my past clients and current clients and potential clients, I will send affirmations. I will send stories based around what I know about them as a character, as an individual, and their coaching environment. It's not one affirmation fits all, because I got burnt doing that. Someone said to me, Bayo, I love the stuff you're sending to me, but this one's no good. So you've got to be very careful about what you send in terms of your marketing material, how you send it, and where you send it. But it is about creating and developing a relationship. And as you know, as a business person, you need to foster and continue those relationships in order to sustain your business model moving forward. And that kind of is something I've learned along the way. That although my coaching is for the moment, for the goal, I'm still there to support you in another way, by way of marketing, without being too intrusive, I hope.
Yeah, and also in terms of marketing, like you say, you've got to get yourself out there and for people to hear you and see you, and do it in a way that gets people's attention. But before you can do that, you actually really have to have a deep look inside with yourself and your business and be like, well, who am I? You can't go saying this is who I am if you don't genuinely know who you are. And it sounds like that's the process that you do with your clients as well, is having that hard look at yourself and then bringing it out there. And I often say to people, your business can be another personality. It can be a person. And if you were to interview it from that perspective of, well, who are you? What are you doing? What is it that you want? What are your goals? It's another way of approaching things in a different sort of paradigm and mind shift that goes with it.
Yeah, and one of the things I say is V2. What's your vision? What's your values? Mm-hmm. Let's start from that point. You want to be a CEO? Great. What's your vision? Who have you shared that vision with? When? How? What was the response to that? How are you going to dress that up to be a CEO? Is it in the company you're in or another company? And then your values. What are your values? What company do you want to be a CEO for? How will your values fit with their values? Have you done the research around that? What's the result of that research? That's the type of questions I would have with an individual. I want to grow my business by 10%. When? Where? How? What's the vision? What's the values? Because if you do not know those fundamentally, you will struggle. Don't get me wrong, you could still deliver, but you will struggle. Particularly in this day and age where a person's visions is marketed or branded for an audience to pick it up. But that vision and value needs to be part of somebody else's problem in order for you to have a solution to make your vision and value worthwhile. So those are the types of discussions I have with all my clients, depending on their goal and how they perceive they're going to deliver that goal. Because it's the resources you have at your beck and call. You know, let's be honest. I want to run a marathon. When was the last time you ran a marathon? I never have run a marathon. How long is the furthest you've run? I don't know. How often do you do 5Ks? I don't do 5Ks. So let's think about the marathon again. You may run a marathon, but maybe not this year's marathon. Does that make sense?
Mm.
But it could be next year when you put in place all those building blocks, all those steps that are needed for you to run your marathon successfully. And success is up to him or her. 4 hours, sub 3 hours, 2.5 hours, they wouldn't be coming to me for 2.5 hours, that's for sure. You know what I mean? They would be saying to themselves, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I need to do 5Ks, 10Ks, 15Ks, half a marathon, then boom, I'm up for a marathon.
I think you touch there also onto something. You know, this day and age, everybody wants results tomorrow. We live in a fast world, and you want to be able to just quick fix, put a pull in or a plug in, and it works. In reality, it's not always like that. And something like this takes a lot of dedication, commitment, and time. And there is no quick fix, but the solution is far outweighs the amount of time and commitment that one has to put into it.
You're 100% right there, or should I say 99% right? Because there are people who've got the resources to make it super quick. Yeah? And it's for me as a coach to work that out. If you've got massive disposable income, massive backing, or massive whatever, time to do whatever you want to do, then yeah, let's build that road for you to do it. But if you haven't, let's take marginal gains. You know the concept around marginal gains? Mm. You take incremental steps in a particular order in order to get the maximum of the big order.
Yeah.
So Peter Brailsford of Sky Team Cycling, I'm a bit of a cyclist myself, and he just said, let's look at every component bit for what makes you cycle, from the saddle you sit on, the oil you use, the chain you use, the steps you take, the handlebars, the whole shebang. Build on those incrementally, and then you got a super team.
That's all the components. Bayo, we can chat for ages. Any parting thoughts? Anything about BigOh Coaching that you would like to share? Something that we've missed? Something that really you're passionate about that you want to bring across?
Well, my strapline talks about strategic business success. I'm a very strategic individual because that's the background that I've had in terms of social housing, project building and stuff. Business, because let's face it, money makes the world go round. You need to have some business acumen in order to deliver and drive a business. But for me, the fundamentals of success, what are you measuring your success by? Don't often be put off by the measurements of other people's success on you. It's your success, it's your goals, it's your steps to your nirvana. So my parting phrase is, work with a coach who's going to understand your goals, not his or hers, not necessarily the competition's, but yours. And then work on developing the tools, the resources, options to deliver that goal.
Perfect.
Know your vision and your values.
I think one of the basics that anybody learns in any business course, but I think everyone forgets it very easily. And in the last few years, I've even seen it in business. Big companies, they forget those very basic two things: your vision and your values.
Yeah.
Very important.
As you said, it's a very fast world out there.
Let's keep up. Bayo, we definitely are going to chat again soon. Thank you for joining us and sharing with us and sharing your journey and who you are. As I always say, be courageous. And it does take courage to actually stand forward and say, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. This is where I'm from. This is what I stand for, not only as yourself as an individual, but for your business at the same time. So thank you for sharing with us. And I look forward to us chatting more.
Thank you, Chris. Great opportunity, great platform, and thanks to you for inviting me onto this. Great, brilliant.